My name is Hiroshi, and I have spent my life as a historian, uncovering the forgotten stories of our past. This one, though, is different. It's a tale of a city that vanished over 1,000 years ago, swallowed whole by an insatiable darkness. I stumbled upon the first clues during a research trip to East Asia. Old manuscripts, long overlooked, hinted at a nation-defining event shrouded in mystery and horror. There were whispers of an entire city consumed in one fateful night. The sheer scale of it was unimaginable. How could a thriving city, bustling with life, simply cease to exist? The deeper I delved, the more I realized this wasn't just a tragic tale of disaster, but something far more sinister. The record spoke of a thriving metropolis, a hub of culture and commerce, where people lived their lives blissfully unaware of the doom that was about to befall them. Late one night, I found myself in an old library, poring over ancient scrolls by the dim light of a flickering candle. The air was thick with dust and the smell of aged parchment. That's when I found it, a detailed account written by a monk who had visited the city shortly before its disappearance. His words were chilling. He described an eerie feeling in the air, a sense of impending doom that hung over the city like a dark cloud. The residents, he noted, seemed oblivious to the warning signs. The monk's final entry was a single, ominous line. "The darkness is coming, and it will consume us all." I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, I decided to retrace the monk's steps, hoping to uncover the truth. What happened to that city? What force could erase it from existence so completely? As I prepared for my journey, I couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of dread. The monk's words echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had once devoured an entire city. What I would find, I didn't know. But one thing was certain. This was a story that needed to be told, no matter the cost. Join me as I embark on this journey into the past, uncovering the secrets of a lost city and the horrifying events that led to its demise. Viewer discretion is advised, for what lies ahead is not for the faint of heart. Armed with the monk's cryptic writings and a growing sense of foreboding, I set out on my journey. My destination was a remote region in East Asia, where the city was believed to have stood over 1,000 years ago. The path was long and fraught with challenges, but I was determined to uncover the truth. The first leg of my trip took me through bustling modern cities, starkly contrasting with the ancient ruins I was searching for. As the miles passed, the landscapes began to change. Towering skyscrapers gave way to rolling hills and dense forests. The air grew cooler, and an eerie silence settled over the land. After days of travel, I finally reached a small village on the outskirts of the ancient city's supposed location. The villagers were wary of outsiders, but a few elderly residents remembered tales passed down through generations. They spoke of a cursed land, a place where the shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and strange whispers filled the night. One old woman, her face lined with age and wisdom, agreed to guide me to the ruins. Her name was May, and she had spent her life tending to the village's ancient shrine. As we walked, she shared the stories her grandmother had told her. Stories of a thriving city that disappeared overnight, leaving nothing but an empty void in its place. The city was called Shinaru, May explained, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a place of great wealth and beauty, but also of deep corruption and darkness. They say the city's rulers angered the gods, and in their wrath, the gods unleashed a terrible curse. As we approached the site, the forest grew denser, and the air thickened with an oppressive sense of dread. It was as if the land itself remembered the horrors that had unfolded here. Finally, we arrived at a clearing, and there, partially buried under centuries of earth and foliage, lay the remnants of Shinaru. Ruined buildings, once grand and majestic, now crumbled and decayed. Statues of forgotten deities stared down with hollow eyes, their expressions frozen in eternal anguish. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I felt a chill run down my spine as I stepped into the heart of the ruins. This was no ordinary disaster site. There was something profoundly wrong about this place, a darkness that seemed to seep into my very soul. May's words echoed in my mind. The darkness is coming, and it will consume us all. Determined to uncover more, I set up camp near the ruins. That night, as the fire crackled and the shadows danced around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The forest seemed alive with unseen eyes, and the whispers in the wind grew louder. Sleep eluded me, and as the hours passed, I found myself drawn deeper into the ruins. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing more of the city's tragic remains. It was then that I stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its entrance obscured by fallen debris. With great effort, I cleared the way and stepped inside. What I found there would haunt me forever. A room filled with skeletal remains, their faces twisted in terror. The walls were adorned with cryptic symbols and drawings depicting unspeakable horrors. It was clear that the city's downfall was no mere act of nature. The true cause of Shinaru's demise was something far more sinister, something that had consumed the city and its inhabitants whole. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a forgotten past, I realized that my journey was only just beginning. The darkness that had devoured Shinaru was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to be unleashed once more. The hidden chamber was a chilling testament to Shinaru's tragic fate. My heart pounded as I tried to make sense of the cryptic symbols and terrifying drawings. They seemed to tell a story of unspeakable horror, a story that had been buried for centuries, waiting for someone to uncover it. I spent hours in the chamber, meticulously documenting every detail. The skeletal remains, the haunting symbols, and the eerie drawings, all pointed to a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. The air was thick with the weight of ancient sorrow, and I could almost hear the echoes of the past whispering in the darkness. As dawn broke, I emerged from the chamber, my mind racing with questions. What had caused the city's sudden demise? What kind of darkness could consume an entire city overnight? And more importantly, what was its source? Determined to find answers, I sought out May, who had returned to her village. She was reluctant to speak of the chamber, but after some persuasion, she shared more of her grandmother's tales. According to legend, the city's rulers had delved into forbidden practices, seeking power beyond their understanding. They had summoned something ancient and malevolent, a force that turned against them, leading to their ultimate destruction. The elders spoke of a demon, May said, her voice trembling, a creature of darkness that feeds on fear and despair. It was said to be imprisoned deep within the earth, but the rulers of Shinaru, in their arrogance, sought to control it. They performed rituals, offering sacrifices in hopes of gaining its favor. But they underestimated its hunger. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. The drawings in the chamber depicted rituals, sacrifices, and a dark entity rising from the depths. The city's rulers had indeed summoned a demon, and it had turned Shinaru into a feeding ground for its insatiable appetite. With this newfound knowledge, I decided to dig deeper, literally. I gathered a team of local archaeologists and villagers, and we began excavating the ruins of Shinaru. The work was grueling, but our determination kept us going. Day by day, we uncovered more of the city's dark history. We found evidence of the ruler's lavish lifestyle, golden artifacts, intricate carvings, and remnants of grand structures. But alongside these treasures were signs of the city's downfall. Hastily constructed barriers, makeshift altars, and more cryptic symbols etched into the walls. It was clear that as the darkness spread, the people of Shinaru had tried to protect themselves, but it had been in vain. One evening, as the sun set and cast long shadows over the ruins, we made a startling discovery. Buried deep beneath the city's main temple, we found a massive stone door, covered in symbols and sealed with heavy chains. This, I realized, was the demon's prison, the place where the rulers had conducted their ill-fated rituals. With great caution, we began to unseal the door. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread hung over us like a shroud. As the final chain fell away, the door creaked open, revealing a dark, yawning abyss. The atmosphere was charged with an almost palpable energy, as if the darkness itself was waiting for us to make the next move. I peered into the abyss, my flashlight barely penetrating the darkness. What lay beyond that threshold was a mystery, but I knew that the answers to Shinaru's fate, and perhaps the key to stopping the darkness, awaited within. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the darkness, my heart pounding with fear and anticipation. The journey into the abyss had begun, and there was no turning back. As I descended into the abyss, the air grew colder and more oppressive. The darkness was almost tangible, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. My flashlight's beam cut through the blackness, revealing a narrow, winding staircase that seemed to spiral down endlessly into the earth. The walls were covered in the same cryptic symbols I had seen in the chamber, their meanings still eluding me. Every step echoed loudly in the confined space, amplifying the eerie silence that enveloped me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone, that unseen eyes were watching my every move. After what felt like an eternity, I reached the bottom of the staircase. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was broken only by the distant drip of water. I found myself in a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in the shadows above. In the center of the cavern stood a massive stone altar, covered in dark stains and surrounded by grotesque statues of demonic figures. This was the heart of the darkness, the place where the rulers of Shinaru had performed their forbidden rituals. As I approached the altar, my flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into complete darkness. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I fumbled for my spare flashlight, my hands trembling, and finally managed to turn it on. The light revealed more of the cavern, and my breath caught in my throat. Scattered around the altar were more skeletal remains, their bones twisted and broken. It was clear that they had died in agony, victims of the demon's insatiable hunger. The grotesque statues seemed to come to life in the flickering light, their eyes following my every move. I stepped closer to the altar, my flashlight beam revealing a large, ancient tome lying open on its surface. The pages were filled with strange, arcane symbols and drawings, detailing the rituals that had been performed here. As I examined the tome, I realized that it was a grimoire, a book of dark magic used to summon and control the demon. The last few pages of the grimoire were different. They described the final ritual, the one that had sealed the demon away. It required a great sacrifice, a life willingly given to bind the darkness. The rulers of Shinaru had used their own lives to imprison the demon, hoping to contain it forever. But something had gone wrong. The darkness had escaped, consuming the city and its people. As I pondered the implications of this discovery, a cold wind swept through the cavern, extinguishing my flashlight once more. In the pitch blackness, I heard a low, guttural growl, followed by the sound of footsteps. My heart raced as I fumbled with the flashlight, desperately trying to turn it back on. When the light finally flickered back to life, I was face to face with a figure shrouded in shadows. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and its mouth twisted into a cruel smile. The demon had been waiting, biding its time in the darkness. "You have come far," it said, its voice echoing through the cavern. "But you are too late. The darkness cannot be contained." With a wave of its hand, the demon extinguished my flashlight once more, plunging me into darkness. I felt a cold hand close around my wrist, pulling me towards the altar. The air grew colder, and the whispers in the darkness grew louder, filling my mind with fear and despair. In that moment, I realized that the only way to stop the darkness was to complete the ritual, to bind the demon once more. But the price would be high, my own life. The weight of this realization settled over me like a heavy cloak. The demon's grip tightened, and I knew that I had no choice. As I struggled against the darkness, a sense of calm washed over me. I had come this far, and I could not let Shinaru's fate be repeated. Summoning all my strength, I reached for the grimoire, reciting the words of the binding ritual. The air crackled with energy, and the darkness around me began to waver. The demon howled in rage, its grip loosening. Light began to pour into the cavern, pushing back the shadows. With a final, desperate effort, I completed the ritual, sealing the demon away once more. The cavern shook, and the darkness was swallowed by a blinding light. When the light faded, I found myself alone in the cavern, the demon's presence gone. The air was still and silent, and a sense of peace settled over me. I had done it. The darkness was contained, and Shinaru's story could finally be put to rest. But as I made my way back up the staircase, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was not truly gone. It was merely waiting, biding its time, ready to rise again. And when it did, someone else would have to be there to stop it. Emerging from the abyss and into the daylight, I was overwhelmed by a mix of relief and lingering dread. The journey had taken its toll, both physically and mentally, but I had uncovered the truth about Shinaru. I knew I couldn't keep this knowledge to myself. The world needed to know about the city's dark history and the sacrifices made to contain the demon. Returning to the village, I was greeted by May and the other villagers, their faces etched with concern. They had sensed the disturbance in the air, the tremors that had shaken the earth during the ritual. May approached me, her eyes filled with questions. "It's done," I said, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "The darkness has been sealed away once more." May nodded, her expression somber. "You have done a great service to us all, Hiroshi. But the darkness is never truly gone. It will always find a way to return." Her words echoed my own fears. The demon might be contained for now, but history had a way of repeating itself. As I prepared to leave the village and return to my life as a historian, I knew that my work was far from over. Back in my study, surrounded by ancient texts and artifacts, I began to document my findings. I wrote about the city of Shinaru, its ruler's hubris, and the darkness that had consumed it. The story was both a cautionary tale and a testament to the resilience of those who had fought to contain the evil. But as I delved deeper into my research, I discovered something unsettling. The symbols and rituals described in the grimoire were not unique to Shinaru. Similar accounts appeared in other cultures and civilizations, spanning across continents and centuries. It seemed that the darkness had touched many lives, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Determined to understand more, I reached out to other historians and researchers. Together, we pieced together a mosaic of ancient texts and artifacts, revealing a pattern of summoning and binding rituals performed throughout history. The same malevolent force had appeared again and again, always seeking to break free and spread its influence. The implications were staggering. The darkness was not confined to one place or time. It was a universal threat, lurking in the shadows and waiting for the right moment to strike. As the pieces fell into place, I realized that our work was more important than ever. We needed to learn from the past to protect the future. Months turned into years as we continued our research, uncovering more about the nature of the darkness and the methods used to contain it. Our findings were shared with scholars and institutions worldwide, raising awareness and fostering collaboration. We hoped that by shining a light on this ancient evil, we could prevent it from rising again. But even as we made progress, the sense of unease never left me. I had seen firsthand the power of the darkness, felt its cold grip on my soul. The memory of the demon's glowing eyes and cruel smile haunted my dreams, a constant reminder of the battle we were fighting. One night, as I sat in my study, surrounded by books and notes, a chill ran down my spine. The air grew heavy, and the shadows seemed to deepen. I knew that the darkness was still out there, watching and waiting. Determined not to be caught off guard, I doubled my efforts, working tirelessly to uncover every piece of information that could help us in our fight. The sacrifices of those who had come before us, the people of Shinaru, and countless others, fueled my resolve. Their stories deserved to be told, their sacrifices remembered. As I turned the pages of an ancient manuscript, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were not alone in this fight. Across the world, others were joining the cause, united by a common goal: to keep the darkness at bay and protect future generations from its grasp. The journey was far from over, but we were not without hope. The echoes of the past served as both a warning and a guide, lighting the way forward. And as long as we remembered the lessons of Shinaru, we could stand against the darkness, no matter how powerful it might be. Despite the constant weight of the darkness, there was hope. The collective effort of historians, archaeologists, and researchers worldwide had forged a network dedicated to combating the ancient evil. We called ourselves the Guardians of Light, and our mission was clear: to prevent the darkness from rising again and to protect humanity from its insidious grasp. Our headquarters was a fortified library in a remote mountain range, filled with ancient texts, artifacts, and the latest technology. It was a place where the past and present converged, a sanctuary for those committed to the cause. Here, we studied the rituals, symbols, and stories from different cultures, searching for patterns and clues that could help us understand and counter the darkness. One day, while poring over an ancient scroll from a long-lost civilization, I came across a passage that caught my attention. It spoke of a beacon of light, a mythical artifact said to possess the power to banish the darkness permanently. According to the scroll, the beacon was hidden in a temple deep within a dense jungle, protected by a series of intricate traps and puzzles. Excited by this discovery, I shared it with the other guardians. We knew that finding the beacon of light could be the key to ending the threat of the darkness once and for all. After much deliberation, we formed an expedition team to search for the artifact. I was chosen to lead the mission, along with May, who had become an invaluable ally, and a group of skilled archaeologists and historians. Our journey to the jungle was arduous, filled with treacherous terrain and unpredictable weather, but our determination never wavered. We were driven by the hope that the beacon of light could change the course of history. As we ventured deeper into the jungle, we faced numerous challenges, from dangerous wildlife to hidden traps designed to deter intruders. One evening, as we made camp near a rushing river, May approached me with a concerned expression. "Hiroshi, are you sure about this?" she asked. "What if the beacon of light is just a myth? What if we're risking our lives for nothing?" I understood her doubts. The search for the beacon was fraught with uncertainty. But I also knew that we had to try. "May, we owe it to the people of Shinaru and everyone else who has suffered because of the darkness. If there's even a chance that the beacon is real, we have to find it." She nodded, her resolve strengthening. "You're right. Let's see this through." The next morning, we continued our journey, guided by the ancient map we had deciphered. After several days of navigating the dense jungle, we finally arrived at the entrance to the temple. It was a towering structure, covered in vines and moss, with symbols and carvings adorning its walls. The air was thick with a sense of history and mystery. We entered the temple cautiously, aware that danger could lurk around every corner. As we moved through the labyrinthine corridors, we encountered a series of puzzles and traps, each more challenging than the last. But with teamwork and determination, we managed to overcome them, drawing closer to our goal. At last, we reached the inner sanctum of the temple, a grand chamber with a pedestal at its center. On the pedestal rested a glowing crystal, pulsating with a warm, radiant light. The beacon of light. We had found it. As I approached the pedestal, a sense of awe washed over me. This artifact had the potential to change everything, to banish the darkness once and for all. But as I reached out to touch it, the ground trembled, and the chamber filled with a deafening roar. The temple began to collapse, and we realized that taking the beacon had triggered a self-destruct mechanism. We had to act quickly. Grabbing the beacon, I yelled for the team to run. We sprinted through the collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris and navigating the now familiar traps. Outside, the jungle seemed to welcome us back with open arms. We watched as the temple crumbled into ruins, but we had the beacon of light safely in our possession. The journey had been perilous, but it was worth it. We had a chance to end the darkness. Back at the headquarters, we began studying the beacon, unlocking its secrets. It was a powerful artifact, capable of amplifying light and dispelling shadows. With it, we could strengthen our defenses and, hopefully, find a way to permanently seal the darkness. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, we had a glimmer of hope. We had the beacon of light was safely stored in our headquarters, a place of reverence and secrecy. Its glow cast a warm, reassuring light in our research rooms, a stark contrast to the darkness we had fought so hard to contain. The artifact's presence was a beacon of hope, but we needed to fully understand its powers and how to harness them effectively. As I worked with the team of scientists and scholars to study the beacon, May continued her role as a bridge between ancient knowledge and our modern understanding. We meticulously examined every aspect of the artifact, from its glowing crystal to the intricate engravings on its surface. The beacon was unlike anything we had encountered before. Its light seemed almost alive, pulsating with an energy that defied description. One evening, as I reviewed our findings, I noticed something peculiar in the beacon's inscriptions. The symbols on the pedestal where it rested were subtly different from the ones we had seen before. I called May over, and together we studied the new patterns. They appeared to form a series of interconnected runes, creating a complex geometric design. May's eyes widened as she recognized the symbols. "These are the same runes used in the final ritual from Shinaru," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "They're part of the binding process. It's as if the beacon is connected to the very spell that sealed the demon." Understanding the gravity of this revelation, we focused our efforts on deciphering the runes. It became clear that the beacon wasn't just a tool for fighting the darkness. It was an integral part of the binding spell. If we could unlock its full potential, we might be able to enhance the ritual and reinforce the barrier against the demon. Our research led us to an ancient text that described a similar artifact used in a historic battle against a dark force. According to the text, the artifact had to be recharged with pure light to strengthen its power. The process involved a rare celestial event, a solar eclipse, during which the beacon would absorb the sun's energy and amplify its own light. The upcoming solar eclipse was only a few weeks away, giving us a limited window to prepare. We worked tirelessly to prepare for the event, setting up an observation chamber to monitor the beacon's reaction to the eclipse. The chamber was equipped with the latest technology to measure light intensity and energy output. On the day of the eclipse, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The team gathered in the observation chamber, and the beacon was placed at the center of a large, open platform exposed to the sky. As the moon began its slow journey across the sun, a hush fell over the room. The first contact of the eclipse was subtle, the light dimming as the moon covered the sun. But as the eclipse reached totality, the beacon's glow intensified. It pulsed with a rhythmic energy, and the room was filled with a brilliant, warm light that seemed to reach into the very core of our beings. We carefully monitored the beacon, recording its light output and energy levels. The artifact absorbed the eclipse's energy, growing more powerful with each passing moment. The symbols on its surface began to glow with a vibrant, ethereal light, and we could feel a palpable shift in the air. As the eclipse began to wane, the beacon's light stabilized, shining with an almost blinding intensity. It was clear that the recharging process had succeeded, and the artifact's power was now at its peak. We had unlocked its full potential, and the beacon was now more capable than ever of combating the darkness. With renewed hope, we prepared to test the beacon in a controlled environment. We set up a simulation to recreate the conditions of the darkness and assessed how the beacon's light interacted with it. The results were promising. The beacon's light not only repelled the darkness but seemed to weaken its very essence. But just as we began to celebrate, a sudden, chilling realization struck me. The darkness we had fought so hard to contain was not simply a force to be repelled. It was evolving, adapting. The demon's influence was still present, and we needed to be vigilant. The beacon was a powerful tool, but it was not a cure-all. We had to remain prepared for the unexpected. As we continued our tests and preparations, the team remained vigilant. The beacon of light was our greatest hope, but the darkness was always a step ahead, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Our work was far from over, and the fight against the ancient evil would continue. The beacon's secret had been revealed, and its power had been enhanced, but the true battle lay ahead. We were armed with new knowledge and renewed determination, ready to face whatever challenges awaited us. The darkness might be formidable, but we had hope on our side, and with it, we would confront the shadows and strive to protect the world from their malevolent grip. The months following the solar eclipse were a whirlwind of activity and preparation. With the beacon of light at its peak power, The Guardians of Light were more determined than ever to confront the darkness that had plagued humanity for centuries. Our research had revealed that the demon's influence was spreading, manifesting in strange and unsettling occurrences around the globe. We knew that our time to act was running out. Our plan was to use the beacon to strengthen the binding ritual originally performed by the people of Shinaru. The goal was to reinforce the barrier between our world and the demon's realm, ensuring that the ancient evil could never escape. The ritual would take place in the heart of the jungle, where the beacon had been found, an area now cleansed and prepared for the final confrontation. The expedition team, now augmented with additional specialists, traveled back to the temple site, which had been meticulously restored and fortified. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of our mission heavy on our shoulders. We had made significant progress, but the true test lay ahead. As we approached the temple, we noticed strange disturbances, flickering shadows, unsettling noises, and an almost palpable sense of malevolence. It was clear that the darkness was aware of our presence and was doing everything in its power to hinder us. Inside the temple, we set up the beacon on the pedestal once more, surrounded by the symbols and runes that would guide the ritual. The air was thick with anticipation as we prepared the necessary components. Ancient scrolls, enchanted artifacts, and the ritual's essential elements. May and I stood at the center of the ritual circle, ready to perform the complex incantations required to bind the darkness. The other members of the team were stationed at strategic points, ready to assist and protect us from any unforeseen threats. Our preparation had been meticulous, but the final ritual was a high-stakes gamble, and every detail had to be perfect. As we began the incantations, the beacon's light radiated throughout the chamber, its warm glow mingling with the eerie shadows that clung to the walls. The symbols on the beacon and the temple floor began to pulsate, synchronizing with our chant. The air crackled with energy, and a powerful force seemed to build up around us. Suddenly, the darkness made its move. The shadows that had lingered in the corners of the temple coalesced into a swirling mass of malevolent energy. The demon's presence was unmistakable, a dark, writhing form that seemed to consume light and hope. The ritual had triggered the demon's full emergence, and it was clear that our task had become even more critical. The darkness lashed out, trying to extinguish the beacon's light and disrupt our ritual. The room shook violently, and the temperature dropped, creating an oppressive chill. Despite the chaos, we pressed on. May and I continued the incantations, our voices rising above the cacophony. We had practiced these rituals countless times, but nothing could fully prepare us for the raw power of the demon. We focused on channeling all our energy into the beacon, using its enhanced power to push back against the encroaching darkness. The beacon's light flared brilliantly, cutting through the darkness with a piercing intensity. It was as if the very essence of light and hope was being concentrated into a single powerful beam. The demon recoiled, its form twisting and contorting as the light seared through it. For a moment, it seemed as though the darkness might be overwhelmed. The demon's cries of anguish echoed through the chamber, and its form began to waver. But just as victory seemed within our grasp, a sudden, blinding flash of darkness surged forward. The force was so overwhelming that it threw us off balance and nearly extinguished the beacon's light. In that critical moment, I felt a surge of desperation. The ritual was on the verge of failure, and the darkness was close to breaking through. I reached deep within myself, drawing on every ounce of strength and resolve I had. With a final, determined effort, I focused the beacon's light on the heart of the darkness, channeling every last bit of its power. The light exploded in a brilliant burst, and for a fleeting moment, the entire chamber was illuminated with a pure, radiant energy. The darkness recoiled, its form collapsing and dissipating into nothingness. The oppressive chill lifted, and the air grew warm again. The ritual was complete, and the darkness had been driven back. Exhausted but relieved, we gathered around the beacon, which now glowed with a steady, reassuring